What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. Man, it's been a horrendous weekend of football for the state of Florida. The Jaguars got me up at 9:30 in the morning just to watch them get 21 skunked across the pond by the Rams. And if that wasn't bad enough, less than 10 hours ago, Florida State had us all up at 2 o'clock in the morning watching them lose to Stanford with the true freshman quarterback down their starting running back. And it still doesn't matter. And I told you guys all week long, there was no guarantee that Florida State was going to beat Stanford. I gave out Stanford plus 18.5. I hope that you guys claimed that free money. And I hope that Mike Norvell is fired. He is just completely ruining the reputation and the brand of Florida State football to no repair. I don't think Florida State can come back from this. Their season is done if it wasn't already. Just like how the Jaguars Super Bowl was done beating the Kansas City Chiefs a few weeks ago, the national championship for Florida State was beating Alabama in week 1 because it has just been downhill ever since. We'll dive into what's next for FSU football after falling 20-13 to Stanford. Miami got upset by Louisville Friday night. We'll talk about that, and then we'll bounce around the rest of college football. Penn State's replacement for James Franklin, their coaching search is already not looking too good for them. Vanderbilt, they dominated LSU. Yes, you heard that right. Vanderbilt, with Diego Pavia playing out his body, beat LSU, send the Tigers home with their second loss of the year, and it looks like the season is about to unravel for LSU the same way that it did for James Franklin and Penn State. And also, how about what we saw out of Alabama with their win over Tennessee? It's their 4th straight win against a ranked opponent, and somehow they still aren't getting the respect that they deserve as the best team in college football. If you live, eat, breathe, and sleep football, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you don't miss when we drop new content. If you don't want your favorite team to look like any of the Florida teams right now, give JT Sports a 5-star review. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, JT Sports is available. The links are down in the description and pinned comment below. And let's dive into it. Florida State falls 20-13 to Stanford. This is their 9th straight conference loss in ACC play. It's time to bring Deion Sanders home. That's my biggest takeaway from this game. This is my only takeaway from this game. Mike Norvell, it doesn't matter how big his buyout is, rather if it's 59 million, 70 million. We just saw James Franklin get fired, and Penn State paid the 2nd highest buyout in the history of college football to do so. Florida State was suing the ACC a few months ago because they wanted out of the conference. They felt like being in the ACC was destroying their brand. It was ruining their reputation as a blue blood program. So if Florida State is willing to sue the ACC to get out the conference because they feel like their reputation is being destroyed, then they should have no problem paying whatever it costs to get rid of Mike Norvell. And Florida State, if you fire Mike Norvell, who's going to be his obvious replacement? Of course, everybody would love to get James Franklin down there in Tallahassee. Unfortunately, if you buy out Mike Norvell, you probably won't have the money necessary to pay James Franklin and to also pay for a new staff. Deion Sanders, however, has a $10 to $12 million buyout. So you can fire Mike Norvell, hire Deion Sanders, and have a cheaper transition as far as the coaching turnover. And whatever Florida State did to piss Deion Sanders off to the point where he now has disassociated himself from FSU, they need to make amends. FSU needs to get on their knees, kiss Deion Sanders 8 toes, and apologize to whatever made him stop repping Florida State. Florida State needs Deion Sanders. They need some no blood. They need somebody who knows what it means to be a Florida State Seminole, to put on that garden and gold. Because obviously for Mike Norvell, losing to Stanford and Pitt is not hitting him hard enough to where we're not seeing this team improve. We're not seeing any adjustments being made. We keep seeing the same Florida State team go out there and get their butts kicked by the weakest Power 4 conference in college football. There is no better replacement for Mike Norvell than Deion Sanders. It's their only replacement. Deion Sanders is using Colorado as a stepping stone. Let's be honest about it. Are you willing to bet your lifetime savings that Deion Sanders is going to retire as Colorado's head coach? I'm not. I strongly doubt that Deion Sanders would turn down this FSU job if it comes available and he's offered it. Deion will never win a national championship at Colorado. I know a bunch of you Deion Sanders supporters and Colorado fans have the hype dream that he will, but let's just be realistic about it. Colorado doesn't have the money nor the resources to keep up with Texas Tech, who just dropped $28 million on this year's team. Oregon, Ohio State, Texas. So even if Colorado gets to the playoffs, they're not going to go that far because the teams they will be going up against will just be vastly more talented due to the amount of money that they were able to pour into their teams. Deion Sanders going to Florida State, though, gives him an opportunity to play in big games. They don't call him prime time for nothing. You can't have the name prime time and not want to play in some of the biggest games in college football. We could see Deion Sanders coaching against Lane Kiffin next year. If Billy Napier does indeed get fired, then they replace him with Lane Kiffin. Could you imagine the ratings? Could you imagine the publicity around a FSU versus Florida game featuring Deion Sanders and Lane Kiffin on the sidelines as coaches? If Florida State isn't willing to apologize to Deion Sanders for whatever they did, I'm going to do it for him. Deion Sanders, on the behalf of Florida State University, I apologize for whatever we did to offend you to where you now don't even claim this school anymore. You made your name. You became a household name playing for the Florida State Seminoles. We need you in Tallahassee. It's a train wreck right now. 9 straight ACC losses. Are you kidding me? This is the worst Power 4 conference in all of football, and Florida State is the worst in it. Deion Sanders, Florida State needs you to save this program. You turned around Jackson State. You turned around Colorado. Now it's time for you to take your Louis luggage and bring it on down to Tallahassee and save the Florida State Seminoles next. You said it yourself after Georgia Tech beat you in week 1. There's no better feeling than getting a big win at the school that you played for your alma mater. You know that you want to coach the Florida State Seminoles, man. You know deep down that no blood still runs deep. And listen, Deion Sanders can't do any worse than what Willie Taggart and Mike Norvell have done these last couple of years. Florida State went from being a premier program in college football to being the laughingstock of the ACC. You just lost to Stanford after losing to Pitt, who had a true freshman quarterback. And I said it last week, and I'm going to say it again. Who can Florida State beat? Realistically, who can you look at FSU schedule right now and say, yeah, Florida State is guaranteed to beat them? Nobody. Mark Norvell has to go. James Franklin was fired after he was 1 game shy of making it to the national championship. So James Franklin gets paid $50 million to leave. Mike Norvell should be paid whatever it costs to get the hell out of Tallahassee. He's an embarrassment to Florida State football. He's an embarrassment to the university. It's disgraceful to lose in the fashion that Florida State did last night. Yes, they got robbed of a touchdown. The game should have went to overtime, but Florida State should have never been in that position to begin with. And I'm tired of hearing the same old crap from Mike Norvell. We got to be better as coaches. This is on us. You keep saying the same crap, and yet the team still sucks every week. It's time to go. It's time to pack your bags and get out of Doak Campbell, get out of Tallahassee. You have to go. If Penn State just paid $50 million to buy out James Franklin, FSU should pay whatever it costs, $59 million, $100 million, to get Mike Norvell the hell away from Florida State. Every game that Mike Norvell coaches, he embarrasses this football program furthermore. FSU has everything that Deion Sanders needs to revive this program. They have more NIL money than what Colorado has. They're in a prime location for Deion Sanders to dominate recruiting. Could you imagine how crazy FSU recruiting will be with Deion Sanders? Deion has already shown that he can recruit blue chip talent. Jordan Seaton, Juju Lewis, Travis Hunter. The only thing stopping Deion Sanders from being an elite recruiter at Colorado is the fact that it's in Boulder. I had a homie that transferred to Colorado Deion Sanders' first year, and he said there literally is nothing to do in Boulder. The only thing there is to watch Colorado play with Deion being the head coach. It's a nice city, but there isn't really much going on other than playing for Deion Sanders there. It's easier to sell recruits to play for Florida State with Deion there, especially with him already having good pipelines in the state of Florida. And also, if you're worried about, what about the players that committed to play for him at Colorado? That's why we have the transfer portal. Marshall lost their head coach, and the entire team transferred and followed him to Southern Miss. The players that are currently on Colorado's roster are committed to Deion Sanders, not Colorado. So if Deion Sanders leads for FSU, Juju Lewis, Jordan Seaton, Amarion Miller, and all of the other good players on that team are coming with him. If you are a fan of Deion Sanders, you're going to be a fan of him rather he coaches at Colorado for the rest of his coaching career, or if he jumps ship for FSU. Most of you guys just support Deion Sanders. So you shouldn't be getting frustrated and getting bent out of shape, yelling on your keyboard about, you don't know if Deion's going to leave Colorado or not. Deion already said he's not leaving. Do you not know how many coaches lie and say they're going to stay and end up leaving anyway? Why are you so emotionally attached to Colorado? Because of Deion Sanders. So if he leads for FSU, you're going to watch. Why? Because of Deion Sanders. Now, if you're a diehard Colorado fan, it would suck to lose Deion. But Deion getting the Colorado job was always a stepping stone for something bigger. Just like Jackson State was. Jackson State was Deion's first opportunity to show that he can be a good head coach. And he took that opportunity and he turned it into getting an opportunity, getting a Power 4 job at Colorado. He's revived Colorado. He has now shown that he's a legitimate coach. He may not be a great coach, but he's a solid enough coach that it's worth Florida State taking a gamble on him. They need some no blood in there. They need somebody that has played for a national championship winning FSU team. Somebody that knows what it takes on the day-to-day to turn FSU into a contender. Something that Mike Norvell just simply doesn't know how to do because he's going about it the wrong way. At least Florida's players play hard for Billy Napier despite him about to get fired. Why? Because majority of the players on this Florida team, Billy Napier recruited out of high school. The majority of FSU's roster is a bunch of mercenaries that Mike Norvell got out of the transfer portal. That's why Florida plays with more heart under Billy Napier than FSU does under Mike Norvell. You never have to question how much heart Colorado's playing with under Deion Sanders. When have you ever seen Colorado's players throwing the towel on Deion? No matter how much they may be down by, they still continue to fight. And this is with Deion mostly constructing his program via the transfer portal. Deion Sanders would just be too perfect of a fit for Florida State not to give him a phone call when they fire Mike Norvell. They have to fire Mike Norvell. You are better off allowing Alabama to get Mike Norvell than you were allowing yourself to get fleeced by him. This is one of the worst coaching extensions in the history of college football. Mike Norvell got lucky that he won a few scratch-off tickets when he got in the portal and he landed Jordan Travis, Jared Verse, Brandon Fisk, Keon Coleman. The chances of finding players that good who have now become some of the best at their position in the NFL is the same chance that you have going in a corner store, buying $1 scratch-off ticket and winning that thing for the max prize. Florida State needs to bring Deion Sanders back home. You can't call yourself primetime and not want to be in the big primetime games that you could be coaching in if you're Deion Sanders. If you take this FSU job, you could be going up against Clemson, Miami, Florida. These are big primetime games that everybody's going to be watching. Everybody watches Colorado only due to Deion Sanders being there. So imagine the ratings that Deion would generate at FSU, a blue blood program that has tradition, that's rooted in pageantry. Bring Deion Sanders back home. Do whatever you got to do to make this thing happen. It's worth giving it a shot. Because more than likely, you won't be able to buy out Mike Norvell, then get James Franklin. Deion makes a lot of sense for FSU. If you ever get bored during the middle of the day and you're trying to talk some football, join the JT Sports Discord server, man. Link is down in description and pinned comment below. We're trying to talk some ball with you, man. We want to hear from you. Go ahead and join the JT Sports Discord server. All the links are in the description and pinned comment section below. Penn State is in for a brutal reality post James Franklin. You see, a decade ago, you could only win a national championship at a handful of schools. If you weren't coaching at a blue blood program like FSU, Florida, Penn State, Notre Dame, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, you were going to have a difficult time of sustaining success and being able to contend for a national championship on a consistent basis. Now, in the year 2025, with how much college football has changed, with NIL pretty much being pay for play, the transfer portal allowing you to overhaul and have overnight success immediately at your new school, there's no reason, if you're Curt Cignetti, to leave Indiana for Penn State. What can't you do at Indiana that you can do at Penn State? Nothing. Indiana beat Oregon on the road by 10. The same team that came into Happy Valley and beat Penn State. Curt Cignetti doesn't need to leave Indiana to compete for the Big Ten, to compete for a national championship. Same thing with Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman was just in the national championship last year. So if he can get Notre Dame to a national championship game, plus he's bringing in top 5, top 10 recruiting classes, what's the incentive for him to leave South Bend for Penn State? You don't need to have top-notch facilities and a boatload of NIL money with billionaire boosters to compete for a national championship, to compete for a Power 4 conference title. Jeff Brohm has Louisville on pace to make it in their second ACC championship game and possibly making it into the CFP. You no longer have ceilings and limitations at a bunch of these Power 4 programs anymore. Why should a guy like Kenny Dillingham or Brent Key leave a school that they played for, that they're alumni for Penn State, when they already are having success? And that's the reality that Penn State is about to walk into. Curt Cignetti was number one on their head coaching candidate list to replace James Franklin. And Indiana just gave him an extension worth over $90 million, fully guaranteed. Lane Kiffin, all he's going to do is use the Penn State head coaching vacancy as leverage to get more money out of Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin doesn't really want to leave Ole Miss, but he's going to use Penn State's vacancy at head coach to get more money out of them. He can already win at Ole Miss. So there really isn't no reason to leave Penn State. If you're a good coach, you don't need to have everything in order to win. As long as you have enough to do what you need in order to build a team that can compete for a playoff spot or a national championship, and you're comfortable with that, you don't need to jump ship for a school that's perceived to be a bigger job. There just is no point in that anymore. College football has been as wide open as it's ever been. Look at the schools right now that are in the top 10. Indiana, Texas A&M. Schools that normally haven't been in the top 10 in the past are now in it due to what? College football has more parity. And with more parity, it means less head coaches needing to feel like they need everything at a school like Penn State that can provide them with everything when they already have enough to be content and to continue to have success at their current programs. It's not as if Curt Cignetti is at a school like Northwestern that just is so limited financially, it's impossible for him to consistently put up 9+ win seasons. And even if Penn State is able to lure away a top head coach, there's no guarantee that they're going to succeed. Just because you have money doesn't guarantee you're going to have success. Texas A&M had a bunch of money. Look how that worked out for Jimbo Fisher. Texas has the most expensive roster in college football, and they are one loss away from their season being over. Same thing with LSU and Brian Kelly. So even if you do get a big name coach and you make a big time hire, even if you do have it all, you can still lose. You can still underachieve. Vanderbilt beat a LSU team with a more inferior roster when it comes to a recruiting standpoint in comparison to the amount of 4 and 5 stars that they have. When you look at Vandy compared to LSU, it's not close. But why Vanderbilt won that game was due to them having a great coaching staff that didn't need everything like how Brian Kelly needed in order to win. Because they have a certain way that they go about building up their team. You also have to be able to establish a culture. And with this mercenary mentality that a lot of these players have in the transfer portal, Penn State thinking that them having all this money to spend doesn't guarantee that they're going to have success post James Franklin. It's a lot harder to replace a guy who consistently has you in the top 12 every single season. It's a lot easier to downgrade from James Franklin if you're Penn State than it is to upgrade from him. Alabama has played the strongest strength of schedule in college football. They have beaten 4 straight ranked opponents. They're the only team in America to do so. They also have the best win so far up to this point this season, going on the road and giving Georgia their first home loss in over 6 years. And they just mopped the floor with Tennessee. Nobody in college football has a better resume than what Alabama does right now. So I'm lost to how Ohio State is still perceived as the #1 team in college football, despite Alabama having a tougher schedule than Ohio State, beating more quality opponents than Ohio State. But everybody still wants to tweak off the fact that Alabama lost to Florida State in week 1. Get over it. That was 6-7 weeks ago. We are in the midway point of this season. The eye test clearly shows that Alabama is the best team in college football. From an eye test standpoint and a resume standpoint, nobody else is touching Alabama right now. But you see, People want to use these mental gymnastics. Oh, SEC bias. Alabama's just propped up because they beat a bunch of overranked SEC teams. Vanderbilt is not overranked. Vanderbilt would have beaten Penn State. Penn State was overranked, though. USC was overranked, though. There were plenty of teams in the Big Ten this year that were overranked. Illinois was overranked. That's Ohio State's best win. You can say Texas was overranked, cool, but Alabama hasn't played Texas. They beat Georgia, who more than likely is going to get into the playoffs. Tennessee could still be a top 12, top 15 team this year. They could be one of the first 4 teams out of the playoffs. They still are a quality team. Alabama has played a better schedule, and they've been more dominant against better quality teams than what Ohio State has. I'm not using this to completely knock Ohio State. Ohio State has an argument for being the number 1 team in college football. But let's not make it seem as if Alabama has no business being in a conversation for being ranked number 1. It's not about how you start. It's about how you finish. Life is 10% about what happens to you and 90% about how you respond. And losing to Florida State is why Alabama has played the way that they have. If Alabama beats Florida State, who knows if they beat Georgia on the road? Who knows if they look as dominant as what they have so far? You need certain canon events to happen in order for certain things to transpire. Right now, Alabama, with the way Ty Simpson has played, he's been the best quarterback in America. He's been the obvious front runner for the Heisman Trophy. They have arguably the best receiving core in all of college football. Their defense has been pretty good, and they have one of the best coaches in America. Kellen DeBoer is the best head coach in college football without a national championship. He's mopped the floor with the majority of college football's best head coaches. There is nothing about Alabama that should disqualify them right now for being ranked the number 1 team in college football. You want to use SEC bias as an excuse to diminish the success that Alabama has, and it's BS. I can use the same argument that you're using to diminish Alabama, to diminish what Ohio State has done, to diminish what Indiana has done. Indiana beat the Oregon team whose best win is against a lifeless and soulless Penn State team that just lost to Iowa, who has zero offense. Who gives a hoot about Alabama losing to Florida State? Move on. Last time I checked, it's not week 1 anymore. It's about to be week 8, week 9. Alabama's the best team in America right now. Anybody saying otherwise is either being disingenuous because they have this tinfoil conspiracy that ESPN just has to prop up all of the SEC teams. You guys do realize that ESPN doesn't just show SEC teams, right? They showcase ACC teams, Big 12 teams. Fox only showcases Big 10 opponents and a few of the Big 12 games. That's it. So how is it that ESPN is biased towards the SEC when they broadcast games for 2 other P4 conferences? The logic doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand why common sense is called common sense if everybody doesn't seem to have it. Common sense would tell you that Alabama, based off resume, based off the eye test, based off strength of schedule, based off the fact that they have the Heisman frontrunner, the hottest quarterback in America right now, it's the number 1 team in college football. But you want to be disingenuous. You want to try to diminish this team's success because you can't come to the reality that the SEC is the best conference in college football. They've run this sport for over 2 decades. Just because the Big Ten has had their cup of coffee for the past 2 years and Michigan and Ohio State have won a national championship doesn't mean that the Big Ten has surpassed the SEC. As a matter of fact, it further proves my point why the SEC is better than the Big Ten. The Big Ten forever has been a 4-team conference. Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, and then a random 4th team, which has been Indiana. And you can knock off Penn State since Oregon has been much better than Penn State. Penn State, their season's done. Same with Michigan. Michigan is in that top 4. There's more depth in the SEC this year than where there is in the Big Ten. And it's not a hypothetical. I'm not giving you, if Indiana played in the SEC, they will have 3 losses by now. I'm not giving you hypotheticals. I'm giving you facts. People want to have a consistent criteria for how we evaluate these teams. And the first thing people go to is, who have you played? Your strength of schedule. Alabama has the #1 strength of schedule in college football, but we got to play mental gymnastics, though, because it's SEC bias. Are you kidding me? How much are you going to move the goalposts until you come to the realization that Alabama is the #1 team in college football based off every criteria that you use to evaluate and rank these teams? They passed the eye test. They have the most ranked wins in college football. They have played in the most games against ranked opponents than anybody else. 4 straight, as a matter of fact. They have the best win, ending Georgia's 6-year streak of home wins. And that still isn't enough for you? That still isn't enough for you to say that Alabama's the best team in college football? What are we doing? What are we doing? Are we still going to use the FSU loss to hang over Alabama? What about when Notre Dame lost to NIU? Did losing to NIU stop Notre Dame from running through everybody else in the college football playoffs and making it to national championship? No, it didn't. If you're trying to diminish Alabama and how good this team truly is because they lost to FSU, I have nothing to say to you. Nothing else to say to you. If you don't want the starting quarterback for your favorite football team to play like Anthony Richardson, give JT Sports a 5-star review. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, JT Sports is available. The links are down in the description and pinned comment below. Tell me college football has changed without telling me college football has changed. Vanderbilt covered as a 2.5-point favorite over LSU. And dominated them throughout the entirety of the game? Vanderbilt, who has been a perennial bottom feeder in college football for the majority of our lifetimes, all of a sudden is in the mix to not just possibly playing the SEC championship in Atlanta, but also make it to the college football playoffs. It's funny because Diego Pavia, before this season started, said that Vandy was expecting to compete for a national championship, and we all laughed at him. We all said, Vandy, you'll probably be good, 6-7 wins, but you're delusional, Diego Pavia. If you think Vandy has a shot at competing for the national championship, they won't even make it to the playoffs. Well, we're about midway through this season, and Vandy's only loss has come to Alabama in a game that they had their fair share of opportunities to win. But against LSU, they left no doubt. Every time Vanderbilt needed to play, Diego Pavia came through. Diego Pavia was out his body against LSU. He single-handedly destroyed this defense, which has been one of the better defenses in all of college football. 3rd down, Diego Pavia is breaking out of sacks. He's making dudes look stupid. He's throwing the ball across the opposite side of the field. He's just finding guys open. It's like the guy had eyes on the side of his helmet and on the back of his helmet. There was no answer that LSU have for Diego Pavia. This is one of the greatest underdog stories in the history of college football, and it's not receiving enough attention. Diego Pavia was under-recruited coming out of high school, had to go to a JUCO. He started his collegiate career playing at New Mexico State, running the option offense, and all of a sudden, he comes to Vandy, and he resurrects this program. He puts Vanderbilt somewhat on the map. He has made Vanderbilt relevant. There's not a better front runner for the Heisman Trophy right now than Diego Pavia. Diego Pavia embodies what the Heisman Trophy is all about. If you take Diego Pavia off of Vandy, they probably wouldn't win a game. Diego Pavia is Vanderbilt football. LSU didn't just lose to Vandy. They lost to Diego Pavia. Their defense played exceptionally well, but Diego Pavia was the X factor in that game. He was just in a different bag against LSU. Brian Kelly, I'm surprised he didn't break a headset. Every time Vandy was in third, fourth down, Diego Pavia kept making plays. They just could not get this man off the field. It's like going up against Lamar Jackson and Madden. Every time you think you're about to get him off the field, he just runs around and makes a play. That's what Diego Pavia was out there doing. Rather, if he was doing it with his legs, doing it with his arm, he was crushing LSU. The man probably has gotten Brian Kelly fired. Think about it. Brian Kelly could possibly lose his job because his defense couldn't stop a sub 6 foot quarterback. I was thinking that I was looking at the Messiah on the football field. I mean, like, if that was the football version of God, hey, you could have fooled me. Because Diego Pavia was out there playing like he was walking on water against LSU. And next up, Vandy has to play Missouri, which I'm going to take Vanderbilt to win that game. When you have competent quarterback play in a conference that's so oversaturated like what the SEC is, there's not a single game that you don't have a shot at being able to win. Diego Pavia has been the X factor, and not just Clark Lee's turnaround with this program, but also Vandy being in the position that they're in right now with the small discrepancy that we have in talent between the top teams and the average, below average teams in the SEC. Oftentimes the difference in these games is quarterback play. And Diego Pavia has been that difference maker for Vandy this year. And we all laughed at Diego Pavia when he made those bold claims that Vandy was expecting to complete for the national championship. He's laughing at all of us now who are writing off Vandy. He wasn't writing back. They brought back the majority of their top receivers on offense. Their defense has a lot of experience. Diego Pavia damn near just might have Vandy playing in the SEC championship. Can you deny it at this point? Who on Vanderbilt's schedule do they not have the ability to be? He has been one of the best quarterbacks in college football. The stats now may not show that, but if you watch the games, Diego Pavia is one of them ones. Eventually, Miami was going to lose a game. Miami was never going to finish this season undefeated. I was not shocked that they lost to Louisville, especially when you know who Louisville has as their head coach, Jeff Brohm, a.k.a. the upset master. And the upset master once again went to work. Jeff Brohm came into South Florida and Hard Rock Stadium with a point to prove. Louisville's first drive, they're throwing out 3 quarterbacks on the field, confusing Miami's defense. Then they pull off the smoothest fake field goal that you will ever see on 4th and 2. Then they cap the first drive off, scoring a touchdown with the tush push. Louisville and Jeff Brohm, they brought the fight to Miami. This was a game that Miami simply wasn't going to be able to win unless the coaching was up to par, and it wasn't. Mario Cristobal and his staff, Jeff Brohm was coaching circles around them. Jeff Brohm, if there ever was a lead candidate for Penn State, now that Kurt Cignetti and Lane Kiffin are out the mix, it has to be him. If you're looking for somebody that's going to have your team ready to play in big games, especially against top 10, top 5 ranked opponents, which is the biggest grudge that Penn State had against James Franklin, being unable to win those games, Jeff Brohm is your guy. Unfortunately, Jeff Brohm isn't going anywhere. He was born and raised a Louisville native. And I remember a few years ago, back in 2018, when Purdue destroyed and dismantled Ohio State when they had Dwayne Haskins at quarterback, RIP, Jeff Brohm was the coach of Purdue when that happened. He also pulled off an upset a few years ago against Michigan when they were ranked inside the top 10. You don't get the name, the moniker upset master without a good reason. And Jeff Brohm lives up to that name. Carson Beck, he didn't do Miami any favors in this game. He essentially threw 5 interceptions. One of them just didn't get called because of a penalty, which bailed him out. Carson Beck, it looked like we saw him revert back to the Carson Beck that we saw last year. And you can't blame Shannon Dawson's play calling for Carson Beck's 4 awful interceptions. The guy was just throwing deep balls downfield, and he was underthrowing them. You might as well have just put Malachi Tony back there at quarterback. Hell, he threw a better pass, that touchdown that he threw, than what Carson Beck threw all night long. If anything, Miami should be running their offense for the remainder of this season through Malachi Tony. Every time Miami puts the ball in Malachi Tony's hands, great things happen. You might as well just let Malachi Tony play Wildcat quarterback. He essentially has carried Miami's offense throughout the course of this season. We're all talking about how good Carson Beck was, but maybe that was due to how good Malachi Tony was. Malachi Tony not only has been the best true freshman wide receiver in college football, I will argue and tell you that Malachi Tony has been the best receiver in college football. Better than Ryan Williams, better than Mekhi Lemon, better than Jeremiah Smith. There's not a single wide receiver right now that I would take over Malachi Tony. He's been bailing out Carson Beck. And when Malachi Tony couldn't bail out Carson Beck against Louisville, you saw what happened. Miami doesn't control their own destiny anymore. Even if they're able to win out. If Virginia and Georgia Tech finish the season undefeated, Miami will be left out of the ACC championship once again. And this is why I was hesitant to fully buy into Miami this year. I still believe full-heartedly that last year was Miami's best shot to make it to the playoffs, to win the ACC, and to compete for a national championship. Cam Ward was a generational quarterback. He was the best quarterback to ever put on a Hurricanes uniform. And only one season with the program, Cam Ward not only resurrected the U, but he broke all kinds of records. He should have won the Heisman Trophy last year. If you bring back the U, you resurrect Miami football, you put Miami back into national prominence, you deserve to win the Heisman. Nobody has been able to have the success at quarterback that Cam Ward has. And we thought that Carson Beck wasn't going to be too far off from Cam Ward. But what we saw out of Carson Beck against Louisville, we saw him in all of his limitations. We've seen the good out of Carson Beck for most of this season, and we saw the downright ugly out of Carson Beck against Louisville. Now, I don't think Carson Beck's going to have another performance this year where he throws 4 interceptions. It's pretty hard to throw a season's worth of interceptions in one game unless you're just making boneheaded decisions like what Carson Beck was making. He was throwing interceptions that were just inexcusable. I can tolerate an interception where a guy undercuts the route or a guy just reads the play all the way through. But one interception that you can't tolerate is the one when guys are just chugging up goal balls even though the guy's not open. F it, he's somewhere down there. I'm going to throw it anyway, even though he's covered. That's what Carson Beck was doing, and it costed Miami. Carson Beck is not a quarterback that can will Miami to a win like how Cam Ward had the ability to do last year. When Miami was down on the road against Cal, Cam Ward took over that game. Carson Beck doesn't have that ability. And Jeff Brohm said it perfectly in his post-game interview. He said that Carson Beck is a really good quarterback. But if you get Miami playing from behind and you get them having to throw the ball with Carson Beck a lot more than what they would like to, it's a recipe for disaster. That's what Louisville's game plan was. And all week long, the deciding factor, what Miami fans thought was going to dictate the outcome of this game, was the monsters that they had on line of scrimmage. How big and how athletic Miami's offensive line and defensive line was compared to Louisville. But what we overlooked was that Louisville's offensive line wasn't too far off from Miami's. As a matter of fact, number 74, Jordan Church, one of my homies from FAU, was going to work against Miami's defensive line. I was so happy to see my boy out there doing this thing. Mario Cristobal might have to give my dude Church a call after this season and offer him a big bag. Say, hey, bro, I know you're at Louisville, but how about you come down to South Florida and come play for me, play for IMG? His freshman year on campus at FAU, he already looked like he was starting material. I was shocked that he didn't start right away. And then he goes to Louisville, and all of a sudden the dude looks like Hercules. I mean, he was working Miami's defensive line. The entire offensive line of Louisville was going to work against what was supposed to be the best defensive line in college football, which I still think they hold the title of that. But Ruben Bain and the other elite edge rushers that Miami has, they were nowhere to be found. They were unable to slow down Louisville's rushing attack. And anytime Louisville needed a big play, they got it. And defensively, Louisville didn't really have to do too much. They just had to let Carson Beck be the Carson Beck that we saw last year at Georgia. And it's funny how last year when Carson Beck was playing for Georgia, he was tossing up all those atrocious interceptions like what he was against Louisville. Everybody wanted Mike Bobo fired. Carson Beck is now gone from Georgia, and all of a sudden, nobody's complaining about Mike Bobo's play calling. But all of a sudden, we see Carson Beck implode against Louisville, and now Shannon Dawson is the problem. Coaches coach, and players make plays. What the hell is Shannon Dawson supposed to call when you got Carson Beck out there with tunnel vision? Shannon Dawson isn't the dude out there playing quarterback. He's not the dude throwing the ball into triple and quadruple coverage. So how is Shannon Dawson the reason why Miami lost to Louisville? I don't think that Shannon Dawson's play calling was why Miami lost to Louisville. Oh, well, he's running too much power, too much inside zone. That's Mario Cristobal's offense. Mario Cristobal wants to run the football down your throat in the middle of your defensive line. He's all about imposing his will up the middle of the defense. Nobody was criticizing how much Miami liked to spam the inside run up until they lost to Louisville the other night. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's Miami's identity, running the football up the middle of the defense, up the gut. But all of a sudden, it doesn't work for one game, and the play calling is too predictable. Nobody ever complains about the play calling when it's working. Nobody talks about how predictable the play calling is when the plays are successful. But when Miami's quarterback tosses out 4 interceptions, all of a sudden, the offensive coordinator needs to go. The play calling sucks. Like I said, I would never have high expectations as long as I'm alive as a Miami fan with Mario Cristobal being the head coach. Elite recruiter, subpar game day coach. Jeff Brohm with a less talented team, spending less money on his roster, was coaching circles around Miami. Now, I don't believe that this season is over. I mean, you guys got me to apologize a few weeks ago, so I'll be damned if I'm about to just say the season's already over for Miami after one loss. When Miami plays SMU 2 weeks from now, that's going to be the game that tells us everything that we need to know about how Mario Cristobal's tenure in Miami is going to go. Because you once again are going up against a really good coach that excels at pulling off upsets in Rhett Lashlee. And Rhett Lashlee has JV Miami. SMU is kind of like Miami Light, because it seems like every player that washes out or doesn't work out at the U ends up going to Rhett Lashlee, and he ends up getting the most out of them. If you look at Rhett Lashlee's coaching staff, De'Aaron King is his quarterback coach. Tyler Van Dyke is a graduate assistant. It's funny how every player that Rhett Lashlee got the most out of when he was Miami's offensive coordinator is still with him. That's a sign that you have a very good coach. And anytime Mario Cristobal goes up against above average or better head coach, he comes out on the losing end more times than not. I'm not a Mario Cristobal hater. Just because I'm a Miami fan doesn't mean that I have to be blatantly optimistic about this team for the sake of being optimistic. I tell it how it is. I tell the truth. If you guys want to go and get some water cooler talk, telling you everything you want to hear positive about Miami, there's plenty of other channels that do that. But over here on JT Sports, we're going to keep it real and we're going to keep it trill. And I've been telling you guys before the season started that I had a hard time drinking the Miami Hurricanes Kool-Aid, because anytime this team gives you a reason to be optimistic, within a snap of a finger, they erode all of that optimism that you had. And we haven't even gotten to the point of the season that Miami normally starts to collapse at. Normally, Miami starts losing around November. The final 4 weeks of the season is when Miami starts to unravel. Well, maybe they're unraveling a month early. You play Stanford. You should win that game. But how does Miami look after a loss? That's the question I have. How's this team going to respond? You can say that losing to Louisville, what's the best thing that happened to Miami? I may say the opposite. Maybe losing to Louisville was the sign of what's to come with this team falling short once again of making it to the ACC championship and reaching the college football playoffs. Louisville is the first good team that Miami has played this year, other than Notre Dame. Notre Dame looks to be really good now. Notre Dame, at the time you played them during week 1, they weren't as good as what they are now. Their quarterback was starting his first ever game. They forgot that Jeremiah Love existed for some reason. Now Notre Dame's looking like a well-oiled machine. If Notre Dame was to run it back with Miami again, would Miami win? I don't know. I'm not saying that they wouldn't, but I'm not saying that they would. Maybe Miami peaked too early. Maybe we saw the best of this year's Miami team the first month and a half of this season. And now with Miami getting into the meat and potatoes of their conference schedule, going up against teams that have good talent and good coaching, you're no longer beating up on the Florida States of the world. You're actually going up against the teams that are going to be in the mix for the ACC championship, possibly. You lose to Louisville. Now I start raising my eyebrows. Now I start asking for my apology from you Miami fans that are saying I was a hater. You were saying I'm not a real Miami fan. What's up now? How do you feel about Miami? Now everybody's all up in arms. Now everybody wants changes to be made. Now everybody doesn't believe in the Miami hype train anymore, when I've been telling you guys this for over the last 3-4 months. And it took losing Louisville for people to finally look at the red flags that Miami had that everybody wanted to ignore for the sake of just being blatantly optimistic. I'm not one of those people, especially if I'm putting money down on these games. And I took Louisville plus 13.5. I was yelling at my homeboy all week long that Louisville was not only going to cover, they had a shot at winning this game because they had the upset master Jeff Brohm as their head coach. In Paris, if you're listening to this, I told you so. I didn't text you. But if you're listening to this, which I know you are, I told you that Louisville was going to win this game. Remember when you was like, Jeff Brohm, who? The upset master? Man, I don't know who the hell that is. I bet you know who Jeff Brohm is now. I bet you put some more respect on the upset master now. Still love you, my brother, but I tried to tell you about Miami. Now, I thought that we possibly would see them lose to Florida State since that was a rivalry game and it was on the road in Doak. And although I picked Miami to win that game, I thought that game would have been a lot closer than what it was. But I wasn't wrong. I wasn't denied. I was just delayed. Delayed gratification. And the delayed gratification, when it comes to my criticisms of Mario Cristobal, are coming back into fruition. I still believe Miami can finish this season 2-10, possibly 11-1, but it all hinges on their game against SMU in 2 weeks from now. Follow us on all social media platforms. You can find us on Instagram at JT_, on X at JT__. TikTok, you can find us at JT__ as well. So you can stay up to date with everything that's going on with the JT Sports Podcast, along with updates and bonus content as well. Go ahead, follow us on Instagram and X. Links are down in the description and pinned comment section below. North Carolina still has yet to be the Power 4 opponent with Bill Belichick as the head coach. They fall 21-18 against Cal. They fall to 2-4 in the season. They had a chance to win this game. As a matter of fact, they fumbled away the win in this game. This was the best that North Carolina has looked all season up to this point under Bill Belichick, and they still couldn't find a way to win. They still found the way to lose this game. This just isn't a good team. And this was not supposed to be a rebuild. So for everybody that keeps saying, wait until next year when Bill Belichick gets more players in and he's able to get more of his guys. North Carolina invested $20 million into this year's team. This program did not need to be rebuilt. Mac Brown had this team a few years ago playing for the ACC championship. They won 6 games last year. Now they're on pace to not just miss a bowl game altogether, but to finish with one of the worst seasons that they've had in over a decade under Bill Belichick. North Carolina does not look like the vintage Bill Belichick coach teams that we saw all those years when he was running amok and dominating the NFL. And I refuse to believe that Tom Brady was the sole reason for Bill Belichick becoming the greatest head coach in the history of the NFL. You got to have good players to have a successful quarterback. And Bill Belichick did a great job of surrounding Tom Brady with greats like Rob Gronkowski, Randy Moss, several Hall of Famers on the offensive line, Logan Mankins, Hall of Famers all across the board on defense. So although Tom Brady probably had a larger role in the success of the Patriots dynasty than Bill Belichick, it's not as if Bill Belichick didn't contribute to the success that the Patriots had at all. You can't win the amount of Super Bowls that the Patriots have won with Bill Belichick having an average head coach. But that's what Bill Belichick looks like at North Carolina. An average, maybe below average head coach. The team doesn't make adjustments. They're not fundamentally sound. They have too many costly penalties, too many dumb penalties, and too many self-inflicted errors. And there was a recording that leaked when Bill Belichick was doing his podcast before he took the UNC job, and Jordan Hudson took full control of the production, saying, we need Adobe Photoshop for some of these graphics. You know, I created some of these graphics with his website. His website is nothing but just a bunch of random videos and GIFs. She's one of those people that thinks she knows what she's doing when in all actuality, she has no idea what she's doing. And she more than likely has Bill Belichick pussy whooped. Bill Belichick is getting ran by Jordan Hudson. If Jordan Hudson was running the production for Bill Belichick's podcast, then of course she's running the operation at North Carolina. She's coaching up this team. Bill Belichick isn't coaching North Carolina. His girlfriend is. He's pussy whooped. He's an old man that was lonely and needed a little young fling in his life, and that's what he got in Jordan Hudson. And he's her sugar daddy. That's all Bill Belichick is for Jordan Hudson. Bill Belichick is Jordan Hudson's sugar daddy. And if she's taking control of the production of his podcast, then of course she probably is having a large say in the coaching decisions that's going on with North Carolina. You see, I thought that Bill Belichick was going to come in and have instant success at North Carolina, but I changed my opinion when I saw the weird interview that came out that he had with CBS, and she's telling him what to say, what not to say. It's pretty obvious that Jordan Hudson is using Bill Belichick as a puppet. The dude has not told this young lady no yet. It's like he cares more about keeping his young girlfriend around than he cares about North Carolina winning football games. Bill Belichick, what does he always say? Limit the off-the-field distractions. Focus on the game. Do your job. Bill Belichick hasn't done a great job at doing his job. As a matter of fact, he's done the same thing that he has preached for so many years throughout his dominance in the NFL for players not to do, and that's be distracted with the off-the-field matters. And that's what Bill Belichick has fallen victim to. He's fallen victim to the same thing that he has preached for years for players not to fall victim to. He's not 100% fully bought in. He has one foot in the coaching and one foot into this young fling. And I'm not saying that Jordan Hudson is taking control of the play calling and all of that, but let's not act like Jordan Hudson isn't running Bill Belichick. We see it too often where you have these older guys, they meet these younger chicks, and these younger chicks are bossing them around, telling them what to do, and they're dropping the bag on them. They're called a sugar daddy. And that's why it's no surprise that UNC has been the disaster that they've been this season with Bill Belichick at the helm. As soon as I saw that CBS video come out, I was like, yeah, this thing probably isn't going to work. Anytime your girlfriend becomes the main talking point of your program, that's an issue. I don't have a problem with Bill Belichick being 30, 40 years older than Jordan Hudson. That's his business. Who he does his dealings with in bed, that has nothing to do with us. But when you bring the bedroom into the football field or on the football field, then it becomes everybody's business. Because now everybody can talk about it because now it's public knowledge. And when the rumblings came out that UNC didn't want her around the facilities, there was truth to that. You know what they say? When there's smoke, there's fire. I'm not shocked that North Carolina has struggled the way that they have with the distraction that Jordan Hudson has been for Bill Belichick. She's running the team. She's coaching this team. If she's running the production for his podcast, for his entertainment company, of course she's going to be telling him what to do with certain positions, certain personnel decisions, with the play calling. That's why North Carolina looks like the worst coached team in the ACC and all of college football. They look like Bishop Sycamore because they look like they have a head coach that looks like he's running a Bishop Sycamore program due to him being ran by his girlfriend. And I never wanted this to happen. I never thought this would happen. I wanted to believe that Bill Belichick still had a little bit of juice left in the tank, that he still was going to be able to show us at the college level that, yeah, there are a little bit of differences when it comes to the technicalities of coaching in the NFL compared to coaching in college football. But if you're a good coach, you can adapt and you can adjust. And Bill Belichick has been unable to do that. And once again, there is no next year. North Carolina won't be running it back with Bill Belichick. When your girlfriend is running you and she's the sole person taking up the spotlight for your football program, it's a sign that you're going to be a disaster.